What's happening in the US currently? Elon Musk, Donald Trump, they have taken the world by a storm.
They essentially sabotaged the first Trump presidency. Because they sabotaged the Trump presidency, Trump lost. His slogan used to be clean the swamp. He didn't clean the swamp the first time. And this time, he is literally cleaning the swamp. Soros, so you will find that everything in India or in America, if it targets Trump, in India, it usually targets both. If the last bottle of Castrol lubricant goes out of the market, I mean, you're looking after yourself now. Let's just put it this way. I think Sheikh Hasina is going to return to Dhaka and triumph in a year or so. Unlike India where everything is controlled, there this empowerment can be a dangerous thing because somebody will take off on their own agenda and till it's too late, you won't see what happened. We have confirmation from the very highest levels of American government that it was an American government operation. Because see, you don't play India in India's own neighborhood. Who knew that the Taliban would become friends of India someday? They're very feminist. They support feminist ideals. They're very secular. I've met with them. Have you met with them? I've smoked ganja and hashish with them. Afghanistan has been anti-India for only 2-3 years in between. A Muslim majority country. Okay. Bangladesh will flip and flop. It will come back to India. Maldives, what happened to all those tweets? Sri Lanka, everybody was saying, oh, he's a communist, Chinese, take over this and that. He comes and we've got a very good working relationship with it. When I see the Haqqanis today, I'm reminded of Jawaharlal Nehru and his secular spirit.
Shocked 2 minute silence. Hello and welcome to the Pamphlet Podcast. I'm Nirwa Mehta. Today we have Her Royal Highness the Archbishop of Mylapore, defense expert who makes Genghis Khan look like a humanitarian, Abhijit Iyer-Mitra. Hi Abhijit, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Nirva. I've been dying to do this for a long time. हमारे को चिढ़ाने का मौका फिर से मिल गया.
Yes, indeed. Let's just start with what's happening in the US currently, right? So Elon Musk, Donald Trump, they have taken the world by a storm. Yeah. Let's start with that. What is happening? Tell us what is happening exactly.
So what is happening is they essentially sabotaged the first Trump presidency, right? Completely bogus allegations of Russian interference. And it was started, remember, by Obama himself, who's one of the most corrupt and useless presidents in American history. Complete race baiter, lowest denomination. He's like the Asaduddin Owaisi of America, essentially. And because they sabotaged the Trump presidency, Trump lost. And he realized that his initial, his slogan used to be clean the swamp. He didn't clean the swamp the first time. And this time, people realized how much BS they were getting through those 4 years. And they voted for him for the first time. A Republican president also won the popular vote in about 15-20 years. And he is literally cleaning the swamp. Now, even here, there is a method to the madness. The problem was in the past cycle, he would try to do something every week. And the democratic news machinery, as it was, because, the humanities and press is completely controlled by the left. They used to take that entire week to destroy that program, and they would build up their ammunition for the next week. This time, he's doing something big every single day. So even before the Democratic Party has decided on its messaging, the next big thing has happened and they are clutching at straws right now. Okay, so the Democrats are on such a back foot at the moment because they realize their entire scam, money laundering, funding that was happening is all going to dry up if he goes like this. So they're claiming, these are children doing it. They're 21-year-old kids. He's gotten people without any expertise. We never voted for Elon Musk. All of this nonsense. They're losing it so badly, they're not able to come back on anything substantive. Even today, Hillary Clinton's tweeted a piece, which is all from the Atlantic. I mean, the Atlantic of all things. Like the Atlantic is like, I don't know, if the New York Times mated with Op India and had a kid, that would be the Atlantic. So what ends up happening is that they are now reduced to cringing, begging, doing demonstrations outside. No newspaper is willing to push their line anymore because newspapers themselves realize they're in deep trouble. Even an absolutely insidious pedophile like Bill Gates, who had a lot to do with the coronavirus and COVID and things like that, is now coming out and saying, oh, Jeffrey Epstein, he blackmailed me. Why are you saying this now? You had the past year, 2 years to say this. You never came out and said it. Now he's begging for mercy. Jeff Bezos at least read the tea leaves and did the 180-degree U-turn that he needed to. वैसे it wasn't a big U-turn or anything. Did it before, so उसको थोड़ा बख्श दिया है. But boss, this is what we need in India as well. There has to be a full house cleaning. And you go after the bureaucrats, you'll see that entire left-wing machinery itself will collapse. The power of the left actually comes from babus.
Right, right. But what about the USAID that they've been dismantling? They've dismantled the USAID, the way they were funding other nations and their system, their ecosystems. How do you see that happen?
So, USAID does some very good programs, which is about 1 or 2% of their entire funding. The rest of it was essentially, why should a aid organization have classified documents? You tell me this. Okay, because you are committed to transparency, and they were also blocking Congress from getting their records. They didn't want congressmen, women, and senators to know where they were peddling money. They get more money than the State Department. They get more money than the CIA. They, in fact, get more money than the State Department and CIA put together. And we don't know where the money was going, right? And it turns out it's a very complex web. Now, I'm very hesitant to use the term deep state, okay? But what you have are these congruent interests that act in a collective way because of collective interest. Let me give you a simple example. Soros, so you will find that everything in India or in America, if it targets Trump, in India it usually targets Modi. And what it will be is all these organizations will get funding from a predictable set of 5 to 6 people. Okay, USAID, George Soros ka Open Society Foundation, Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, Bill Gates Foundation, Pierre Omidyar. Right, so Pierre Omidyar, for example, funds News Laundry out here. Now, because his funding has been clipped, now you'll see News Laundry will stop paying its salaries in a few years' time, and especially when the boss and that lady who's married to an INC, that whack job, googly-eyed dung beetle, will get they will get their 7 lakh, 5 lakh salaries. All the others will be put out to pasture. Because you know and I know that this so-called subscriber-driven model does not work. Okay, it has never worked. The subscriber funding of places like this is minuscule. It's actually like Wikipedia, right? Which is completely corporate funded as a very specific censorship mechanism. So what ends up happening is George Soros likes to, why does he support wokeness? Why does he support more crime and district attorneys who will not prosecute crime? Because he wants to, every market has a sort of market distortion. There is no market that is not distorted. It is the nature of markets to be distorted. When a market gets super distorted, it becomes very easy to bring it down, and through short selling and things like that, you profit off of it. This is what he did with the Southeast Asia economic crisis, जो 2008 में हुआ था. That was lots of things. That was also the subprime mortgage crisis and things like that. But what ends up happening is that when you do things like this, you divert funding to other things, it distorts the market more, which makes it easy. And he's openly said this in his interviews, he's amoral about it, as he claims. This is one. The second interest group you take is someone like, say, the Bill Gates Foundation, whose interest is that they control all the medicines which will get approved. Okay, so they control publications like The Lancet. They control people like EcoHealth Alliance and Peter Daszak, who has now been finally debarred for all his crimes and things like that. He needs to go to jail. And their whole thing is they will control the entire medical market. You will not get approval unless you contribute to Bill Gates's foundation and things like that. They decide what is a good drug. They decide what is not a good drug. They went on telling you remdesivir during this thing does not work. We now know that remdesivir does in fact work. Okay. And they were only pushing the ones that they wanted. When the Indian drug came up, they went over and above the call of duty to prevent the Indian drug from getting its thing. We should never be engaging that वो Ethiopian Dr. Death जो है, Dr. Tedros.
Detros, yeah.
Dr. Dethros, we'll call him Dr. Dethros. They're all part of a cabal. Okay, so there are two separate people, but they have a common interest because the system of corruption that lubricates all of them is very similar. So it's not a deep state, it is congruent interests of everybody doing this. Now, we had kicked out Bill Gates Foundation from India. We had kicked out Ford Foundation from India, but as usual, they called up their lackeys and the lackeys lobbied and Ford Foundation was let back in. Ford Foundation now behaves itself in India. Okay. Bill Gates Foundation does not behave itself in India because they were behind a lot of the stories that were circulating about all the other vaccines in India. You remember there was this push for Pfizer and things like that.
Right.
Why was that? A lot of it was done by the Bill Gates Foundation, right? So all of these things are coming crashing down now. Because when you hit the system that lubricates all of them, see, you may have 100 cars on the road, but if there is only one lubricant, say Castrol ka GTX lubricant, this is not an advertisement for Castrol, by the way, Castrol ka GTX lubricant, assume it's got a monopoly in the market. You remove the lubricant from the market, you don't have to go around smashing each car. The cars will just stop after a month or two, right? That is what is happening. They're getting to the root of it. And that is why they're so upset. But notice, because you're getting to the root of it, you can't even attack back in force because you have to conserve energy because if the last bottle of Castrol lubricant goes out of the market, I mean, you're looking after yourself now.
Right.
It's a very smart way of going after things. That is what is happening. Now they're going to go after the Internal Revenue Service. I think the Internal Revenue Service is going to be next. Because the Internal Revenue Service, like our own tax service, is a harassment service. If you've met a ordinary, like the poster boy for all taxmen is Arvind Kejriwal. And he was the one guy who never got posted. So imagine the ones who got posted out, transferred out, kitne bade fraud honge. I mean, anybody who's dealt with the tax department will tell you there's no bigger morons than the tax department in India. It's the same in America. So they're going to go after the IRS, right? There's a lot of things that have been hid under the carpet, and that is where AI comes in. So there's one guy who's getting a lot of attention, who's from the University of Nebraska. He actually cracked the code for these old Greek manuscripts that were found in Pompeii, and he used AI to do it. Right? Because they'd been burnt from the ash, from the pyroclastic, it wasn't the pyroclastic flow, it was the ash from the eruption of the volcano, Vesuvius, that these things were burnt to, I mean, imagine they've CT scanned it. This kid learned Latin just so that he could read it, but it turned out to be Greek, so then he learned Greek. Now you apply AI to all the layers on which you've funded it. So the way this would work is, USAID will give funding to, they will never do it directly. USAID will give funding to Ford Foundation. Ford Foundation will give it to somebody else. Somebody else will give it to somebody else. And finally, it will come to that fellow, Vijay Mahajan, who runs the Bharat Jodo Yatra.
Right. Rajiv Gandhi Foundation.
Rajiv Gandhi Foundation. Okay. So they hide it in 100 different things so that they can say, which is why. But notice, when the BJP tweeted against the State Department in USAID, the State Department did not want to come on record on it. They left the embassy to defend itself. They were refusing to talk. They set out a standard cut, copy, paste email to all the journalists who had called for a comment. USAID never opened their mouth. Right? Now it is high time we understand that USAID is a clear and present danger. You need to impose primary, secondary, and tertiary sanctions on all recipients of USAID funding, of Piero Midyar funding, of Open Societies Foundation. Why are people who associate with Open Societies Foundation platformed by the government? Why do they not have their bank accounts seized? You have a guy who is trying to wage economic war against India, which incidentally is punishable by death under the Indian Constitution. Why are you not banning them? Right? You have to destroy all entities even associated with these people.
Right. In fact, USAID also during the Biden government, just ahead of our elections, 2024 elections, their aid to India, so to say, increased drastically.
Yeah.
They funded NGOs, the education institutes. काफी बढ़ गया था उनका
Yes.
involvement in here. So you think that was all part of Rahul Gandhi also during his foreign trips would always call for foreign intervention, so to say, कि we
Of
need
course.
save democracy.
Why do you think he was calling for foreign intervention? Then he tried to say, oh, no, I didn't call for foreign intervention. It's clear as night and day. He called for foreign intervention, not once, but twice. Right? Imagine, why does USAID put in $1 billion into promoting atheism in Nepal? What is the benefit of promoting atheism in Nepal, a Hindu country, was a Hindu country, but it still has a very strong Hindu culture. But then you are promoting St. Patrick's Academy in Chennai to do Christian schools. St. Patrick's Academy is a very rich school. Why are you giving it money to set up classrooms and computer training here? Then you are giving the Episcopalian Church in America and the Catholic Bishops' Conference money to bring in more and more refugees, illegal immigrants into America. Okay, now I completely accept that any country should use this kind of leverage against other countries. USA doing it to India is perfectly legitimate American interest, whatever I don't know what their interest is. We should also be doing it to them. Okay, we don't. Unfortunately, we've got this goody two shoes thing going on. Fine. You're trying to do this to us. The danger is when you turn against your own country, that is the line that they crossed. शर्म की बात ये है कि we know USAID is doing it to us. What prevented us from shutting down the USAID office and expelling all this thing? What is stopping you now? If you expel all the USAID guys now and shutter their office, what is stopping you? Do it. Right? And we have to be very clear about this. State Department, there was a paper that had come out, I think in 2001 or 2. It's a fantastic paper. Everybody should read it. It's called State is, there's that book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus and Men Are From Mars. It was like state is from Venus and defense is from Mars. So defense generally tends to vote Republican. Most people in the Pentagon would vote Republican. And we have a lot of friends in the Pentagon. Okay. State would generally vote for Democrats. That said, there is no paucity of friends that we have in state. The problem is we don't know how to use them. So you look at the Biden administration, Anthony Blinken was viciously anti-India. Jack Straw was a huge champion of India. For Jack Straw is the former British Jake Sullivan, the NSA. Jake Sullivan, in Jake Sullivan's eyes, India could do no wrong. In Anthony Blinken's eyes, India could do no right. Okay? You have a lot of levers. Why aren't you using them? You should have India Aid, which goes and supports, MAGA churches in America and shit like that. But we don't do this. We need to be doing this. And initially, if you remember, I was a bit uncomfortable with Elon Musk interfering in Brazil. And I'm like, bhai, if Rockefeller, Ford, George Soros, Omidyar, Bill Gates are all allowed to interfere in India and create an international left, why the hell should we have an international right that does the exact same thing? Are we so weak that if one fine day Elon Musk turns against us, we can't deal with him?
Fair enough. I think when we talk about the regime change operations, right, one of the major thing, they were not very happy with the Modi government being in charge and coming back for the third time, because obviously India is a threat, so to say,
Of course.
when it comes to America's superpower. So, you think the regime change operations that happened across in the neighboring states, right? Pakistan has volatile situation. Bangladesh had a toppled government. How much? Obviously, Imran Khan has been shouting from the rooftops that is America behind it. Bangladesh also, we have noticed. Obviously, it's no secret there also. How do you see now with USAID out of the way? How do you see Bangladesh coming? What things happening in Bangladesh now?
Okay, so in Ukraine, there was very clear evidence of American involvement in the Maidan protests and things like that, right? I mean, it was boss. We've got Victoria Nuland on tape saying what she did, right? And there are no bigger scumbags in DC than Victoria Nuland and her husband. Um, with Bangladesh, it was more complicated. Had you asked me the same question 3-4 days back, I would have told you, listen, there is no proof. There is no solid proof of it. Today, after what Elon Musk has tweeted, we know that there was a clear regime change. We have not seen the documents yet, but if an official of the government, the head of Doge, is saying that there was a regime change operation in Bangladesh, clearly he knows more. I am inclined to agree with that. But was it even remotely surprising that this collective cabal that I described, Rockefeller, Ford, USAID, Hillary Clinton Foundation, Open Society Foundation, the same guy who's the darling of all these guys suddenly comes about and becomes the unelected prime minister, chief advisor, gives you no schedule for elections, open-ended chief advisorship without any elections. What is your excuse? I mean, if Sheikh Hasina is so unpopular and she's going to lose an election, to call an election, na? No, he won't do that. It may take a few years. What takes a few years? So let us call Bangladesh for what it is, an unelected coup dictatorship. Essentially spearheaded by the Jamaat-e-Islami, which we know for a fact now that this fellow, while he was, and all our ambassadors in Bangladesh were also telling me that this fellow John Danilovitz or whatever he was used to go around and he used to goad. The Indian embassy actually has recordings of him goading Jamaat-e-Islami. He was actively encouraging them out there. Okay. And he was, so there was a very concerted attempt with Bangladesh. Okay. Now, I thought John Danilovitz was acting as and you have a lot of these whack jobs if you know the US State Department, you have complete whack jobs that go off on a tangent all by themselves. There is no, unlike India where everything is controlled, there they kind of, this empowerment can be a dangerous thing because somebody will take off on their own agenda and till it's too late, you won't see what happened. But now we have confirmation from the very highest levels of American government that it was an American government operation. But I'm not worried about it, and I'll tell you why. Have you seen how the Bangladesh economy is sinking? Their textile exports are down, their ceramic exports are down. By textiles or ceramics के बाहर तुम्हारा है ही क्या export करने के लिए? Your gas fields will take 7-8 years to develop. So till then you will be dependent on India. You are going after all your industrial houses because they were all in cahoots with Sheikh Hasina. So all your industrial production is going to come down. I see a major revolution happening, a genuine street revolution happening there in about a year or 2 years, because there is no way now you add to the fact that all his foreign funders are now more interested in protecting themselves than they are in protecting their little puppets. It's going to have, let's just put it this way. I think Sheikh Hasina is going to return to Dhaka and triumph in a year or so, maybe 2 years.
Okay, that's interesting.
Which would have happened even if Trump wasn't there. Because see, you don't play India in India's own neighborhood.
Right.
This is like a casino. The house always wins. In South Asia, India is the house. Right. No matter what, we always win.
Yeah.
See, Nepal may go against us every now and then. But ultimately, I'm not going to use that. There was a very famous shaira that Amar Singh once recited about people who left the SP, but I will not use that for a foreign country.
Okay, then.
Afghanistan.
Right.
Who knew that the Taliban would become friends of India someday? But I have always said, ever since I went there in 2019, I've always insisted that if, Al-Jolani is a moderate rebel, then the Taliban are highly secular, progressive, feminist patriots in an Afghan cultural context. They're very feminist. They support feminist ideals. They're very secular. I've met with them. Have you met with them? I've smoked ganja and hashish with them. I am telling you, they are patriotic, secular. They're very secular. Okay, they are as in fact, when I see the Haqqanis today, I'm reminded of Jawaharlal Nehru and his secular spirit.
Shocked 2 minute silence at
No,
the
I
comparison.
genuinely, I'm just being very serious. They remind me of the heyday of Indian secularism that's been unaffected. Now, of course, we're in the throes of a fascist takeover of India. But for me, the Haqqani network are Nehruvians with guns. You remember what Arundhati said about Naxals, no?
Yeah, Gandhi
Gandhians with
with
guns.
guns.
So the Taliban are Nehruvians with guns. So we won in Afghanistan again. To date, in its 70-year more, I mean, they got their independence in 1920. In their 100 years of independence, Afghanistan has been anti-India, or let's say 70 years of Indian independence. Afghanistan has been anti-India for only 2-3 years in between, from 1998 till 2001. Okay, a Muslim majority country here. Okay, Bangladesh will flip and flop, it will come back to India. Maldives, what happened to all those tweets? Ultimately, he had to come to Delhi and this thing. Sri Lanka, everybody was saying, oh, he's a communist, Chinese, take over this and that. He comes and we've got a very good working relationship with him. See, don't discount our diplomacy also. We're not, there may be a lot of morons in the system, but the 2% managed to compensate for the 98% morons. So as far as neighborhood is concerned, we're very shrewd. So this would have happened irrespective of what is happening in America. Let us also give congrats to our own diplomats and our own strategic thinking.
Correct. But I still have one question when it comes to the radical Islam in the neighboring countries. Bangladesh and Pakistan, especially, very, very porous borders, both these countries. Bangladesh more so with India and Bengal. Obviously, the cultural aspect is also there in West Bengal and Bangladesh. Uh, Jamaat-e-Islami, obviously, also being very, very shrewd, they're very radical. They've been trying to rewrite history. Mujibur Rahman ko statue गिरा दिया ये वो. So how does India deal with the radical Islam neighborhood?
One big problem that we had, which was a Saudi interpretation being forwarded in India, has actually turned into an advantage for us. Okay, because the Saudis, MBS and MBZ are extremely close personal friends of Modi. They themselves have realized the dangers of that kind of radicalization. And you look at how Saudi Arabia is modernizing, it's going down the Abu Dhabi, Dubai route. So you now have the overwhelming majority of Gulf countries which had invested in India, which are no longer a problem. They're actually part of the solution right now. The problem is they see India as a shining star and they see Pakistan as a basket case and Bangladesh. So they're not investing in. We should probably encourage them to invest more. Well, not really. I mean, on balance, I would rather they didn't. But
Right.
the problem now is Qatar. Because Qatar is today where Saudi Arabian thinking was 40, 50 years back. Okay, and they're playing an extremely destructive role. Okay. And they're taking over all the seminaries that the Saudis used to fund. Now, the Saudi funded seminaries are not the problem. The problem is the zoo of mullahs that Pakistan runs, who are permeating the discourse in Bangladesh, who are also permeating the discourse in India. Remember, Zakir Naik is a homegrown whack job. You have a lot of these separate whack jobs. So Maulana Maududi, for example, was an Indian, homegrown whack job. He's considered one of the great innovators of modern Islam. But he's considered an absolute takfir by the Saudis. If he ever went to Saudi Arabia, he would be executed. Today. There's really no way of dealing with it. You can have this sort of materialist view ki if there is development, there will be less radicalization. No. We've seen it works part-time, it doesn't work full-time. It is part of the solution, it's not the full solution. I'll tell you why. Osama bin Laden was a multi-billionaire. Well, not billionaire, but his personal fortune was 300-400 million. And he was one of the most notorious terrorists around, right? What materialism does is it removes the street veto that Muslim mobs have in this country. Because when you have industrial jobs and things like that, you can't go around beheading people. Where is the spare time? You have to earn and put money on, because see, once living standards go up, the cost of living also goes up. You can't go out on the street and protest because you're shit scared of losing your job one day. So it takes a particularly committed radical at that point to then come out on the street. So you reduce, and people will say, oh, look at Britain, look at America. Well, these guys run their own mom and pop store. So, when you produce 5 kids, you'll be like, one guy will look after the store. The other 5 will go around beheading and burning and whatnot nonsense. Okay. One is birth control, and the fertility rates are coming down massively, even amongst Muslims in India. The second is you have to industrialize, which takes away the vast bulk of the street veto. But the radicalization itself is a mind-space thing. And the problem is in India, when you don't control, the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Omanis, Bahrainis have extremely strict controls on what a mullah is allowed to preach. France, Germany, they monitor what a mullah says in the mosque. You have to do that. You have to do that. So it is not one solution, it's many things. Get the street power out. Take the street veto out. Reduce the birth rate so that there are not 5 people. Now remember, if you remember in Kashmir and Punjab, when there was an insurgency, do you know what the birth rates there were? 5.8, 6. That was the total fertility rate, which is every 2 parents were producing 5 to 6 kids. And 5 is the median. Some of the educated families would be producing 3, but the less educated families would be producing 7, 8 kids. Which is why the median used to come down to 5, which was fueling the insurgency. Okay. Now, Kashmir and Punjab have less than replacement rate fertility. We don't take these things seriously, but they're very, very serious. So you need to, getting fertility down, it's happening. It's happening through better healthcare, better education and things like that. You also need some coercive measures like birth control is the belief in some quarters. I don't believe in that, because when you try to artificially control birth, it has catastrophic effects like we're seeing in China, right? You do it through not coercion. You see a lot of talk on the Hindu right of coercive birth control and things. Very, very dangerous. Don't. The birth rate will control through better education. Zyada kaam hi de do, it will control itself. Industrialization, and then serious political, philosophical de-radicalization in terms of monitoring places of worship.
Right.
It has to be done.
Right. Finally, with the USAID shutting down and the India links, 3 points very quick on way forward and the repercussions of how things have evolved in the past few days.
If Trump keeps on this attack, the left will have no way of fighting back in America. That's very good for us. We need to take this opportunity to throw all USAID, Soros affiliated folks in jail, seize their assets. Don't throw them in jail, but seize their assets. Blacklist them, no bank loans, no bank guarantees, no UPI. Debank them. I mean, Trudeau did it, so it's a very liberal thing to do, right? I mean, if Trudeau can do it, if PayPal can debank people, we should also, I mean, it is secular and liberal thing to do.
True, true.
Okay. So do this with all the USAID fundies, do this with all the Soros fundies, do this with all the Omidyar fundies, freeze their bank accounts, freeze their assets. They shouldn't be able to sell anything except at cost price. Not even that. Second, kick out USAID now. Kick out Bill Gates Foundation now. So financial sanctions, kickouts. And the third thing we need to do is you need much better counterintelligence than what you have. We can't be depending on America to clean house for us to discover when you have no ways of forensic investigation. It clearly, I mean, clearly a counterintelligence in this case has failed very, very spectacularly. These are the three things.
All right. All right. I think we can conclude this podcast right now, but it was fun having you on board, and we must do this again. And
Absolutely. If you don't get sued and I don't get sued for this, I'm happy to come back again.
and hopefully no Sartan se juda also. We were safe on those.
No, we will say, you never know, with the whack
You
jobs
never-
floating
you never.
around. They might decide that
I like
me-
how whack jobs is your favorite word. At least a
Yeah,
shot every
I-
time Abhijit says whack jobs.
Yeah, it's become my favorite word of late because, I've realized the number of people who are surprise in parliament who their relatives are telling me require bipolarity medication, anti-anxiety. There is one Alprax Rani in parliament. There is one, what is that bipolarity ka silver medication, silver sulfide, I don't know what it is.
don't know, but
There is one more who overdoses on those. Mental health is a very serious issue. And the only reason I'm saying whack jobs is because I've realized there are, well, let's just say we're legislated over
Okay.
by a number of.
okay, let's not get sued. Okay, then. Okay, on that note, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.